This podcast, Strange, Rare, and Peculiar, is for kind of those in the know about homeopathy, deepening your knowledge, bringing you more information about what you need to know and maybe what you can leave aside about homeopathy.
Homeo what?
Homeo what?
We're underway.
Are we?
We are. Good evening, good afternoon,
Hello.
and good morning.
Is this podcast number 22?
22. That's a nice beanie you've got there.
Thank you. It's cold.
It is. It's gone cold. It's the merry month of April, and
It was like 115 degrees here last week.
Right.
And we had the air conditioning on one day.
She means it was 31 for those folks that speak normal.
And now it's freezing.
And now it's cool.
Got my cozies on.
I was out there this morning doing the
Rubbish.
Doing the rubbish.
Your favorite thing. Your favorite day of the week is rubbish day. Anyway, so here we are. What are we talking about today?
We are talking about something that's absolutely critical. It's on my mind. Oh, it's the what I would call the critical nature of the therapeutic relationship.
Wow.
And it's so interesting because Hahnemann speaks about it not. It's one of those things where I just find it fascinating that I do believe it's an excellent, excellent critical augmentation to our work.
Yeah.
Do you think that Hahnemann was a kind of a warm guy, a cozy practitioner, a person you could talk to?
I mean, he was born in 1755, in Germany.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know.
Do you think he was more prickly?
There was that story, I think I've talked about it on the podcast, one of my favorite stories about when the American actress turned up in Paris.
Yeah.
And Hahnemann was sitting there and he was all shriveled up and, he was a little tiny guy by that point and he was surrounded in a cloud of pipe smoke.
Yeah.
And Melanie was taking the case.
Yeah.
And then at a certain point, was it that he realized she was German or something and then he perks up and then he starts speaking to her in German and he's really animated and friendly and all of that. Makes me think that he's, maybe not a crotchety guy. The other thing is when he sent a letter to Herring. I actually quite love that. Wait, there's a whole lot of action going on here. Are you okay now?
I just turned myself into a pretzel.
I wondered how long you're going to be able to sit in that position.
Oh.
Okay, you good now?
I'm all good.
All right. So there's also the letter that Hahnemann sent to Herring, in which he included a silhouette of himself, and he talks about how they captured sort of the fine shape of his head, but perhaps not his demeanor, and sort of the implication is that he looks sort of stern in it, and that he's actually a softer person. You know how I have there's the picture that I use when I'm doing presentations of the things that Hahnemann says we shouldn't do, and it's the stern Hahnemann face. Do you know the picture I'm talking about? Yeah, he's got the really mean look. But then there are all those other ones, that my favorite one of him where he's wearing the beanie, and he has such a soft face.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, when it comes to case taking, he gives us, when it comes to the work we do,
right.
I find it interesting that he gives us the posture we should adopt. And then he tells us, do this and this and this.
Yeah.
But it's pretty general.
Yeah.
It's basically get information. But you need to be unprejudiced. Sound senses, attention to detail.
Sure.
And fidelity.
Fidelity, yeah.
And in tracing the picture of the disease. And that's kind of as close as you get. And then, of course, just jump forward a couple hundred years. Or jump forward, say, 150 years. Then you've got the world of psychology, psychoanalysis, psychotherapy.
It's not even 150 years. I mean, that happened in the 19th century.
Well, I wasn't talking Freud, actually.
Okay.
Because when you start to get into that world,
yeah.
you realise that they are having quite robust conversations about the best way to work with people. And that's not too far away from us. We work with people.
Right.
We tend to want to get good information that we want out of them, which is a little different.
Heck yeah.
But to get good information, I think there's so much that we can learn. And the therapeutic relationship part, where I come from with it, is that in the kind of 50s, late 50s, 60s, 1950s? Yeah, sorry. Okay, just for clarity.
Thank you.
In the 1960s, you've got this guy coming along in psychoanalysis, and he says, I'm sorry, everyone, I think you've got it completely wrong, because I've found that the best thing to do with my clients is just be with them, not try and do something to them, right. not even try and extract information out of them. And that's the beginning of the kind of the therapeutic relationship as an arena to study.
Yeah.
And there's been a whole lot of scholarship into Carl Rogers, and I remember reading this book by, I think it's Merry, Merry, talking about how being with somebody in their suffering is as much, if not a better thing to be able to do for them and with them in the moment than any other technique. And I've always kind of listened to that and realized that what I do in my clinics, at least in my clinical work, is kind of basic old style Hahnemannian homeopathy, but with that therapeutic approach.
Yeah, totally. It's interesting because it's so there's so many threads that I want to pull from what you just talked about. But I want to start with something that's sort of unsaid so far, which is the ways in which it's gone, sort of what it probably looked like in Hahnemann's time. I'm going to say he didn't sit for 2 hours with people.
No, he'd sit for 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now you've got people who are spending, 1, 2, 3, 4 hours. I heard recently that there's this trend where people are seeing a homeopath for as many visits as it takes for them to get the case. Now, I don't mean to be crass here, but I can't imagine that that's a proper business model.
No, well, it's an expensive endeavor.
Right, or are you sort of making this an elitist sort of, Jungian analytical sort of platform?
Yeah, I actually think what I just said before is different to Jungian analysis, though.
Yeah. But I'm just, talking about these hours and hours and hours, because, and like every conversation that we have, it boils down to, my primary research question: what the hell is homeopathy?
Yeah, good.
Right, because the question is, what is the intention with the visit? And I think I like what you said about how your clinical experience is a combination of, Rogers, of letting the client speak, which of course Hahnemann, dictates to us, let the client say what they have to say, right, so that we can get the language of the disease. And then Hahnemannian homeopathy, which is, of course, to perform all those tasks to make sure you have the information. I think there's this other sort of cultural, I don't know, not cultural is the wrong word, but like, there's a way in which homeopaths hold space that other modalities don't.
Yep.
And we provide a modern day service that's really needed.
Totally. I think that's fascinating.
Right?
Yeah.
And
that holding space is almost what I was talking about. And it with what I said before about Rogers. Yeah.
So it's early on in the podcast, given our usual way that we roll, to sort of get right to the heart of something.
Well,
but
let's not mess around.
Let's not mess around, because it just brought me to a conversation that you and I had very early on in our professional conversations, which was you were concerned enough about the work of the homeopath that it might only have been the therapeutic relationship that was providing the, that kept clients with you. I don't want to misstate, but I would love for you to talk about that.
Well, I think...
or did I bring it on too early? Have we not done enough?
No, not at all. Because I think, when we start talking about the therapeutic relationship, we start talking about the way that we engage with clients.
Right.
And I started deliberately by saying, well, was Hahnemann a nice bloke? Was he a person that you would want to spend time with?
Yeah.
And for me, the answer would be, don't think so. And so... the criticism, a common criticism, a legitimate, it's a bit lazy as a criticism of homeopathy, is that, you people are nice. And so you get results because clients like to sit with you and talk with you and have an hour with you, and you've got these rituals. You listen, then you give the tablet, and that's a little, and there's all sorts of parallels in Catholicism and Christianity and ritual, and therefore it's an elaborate placebo. You've heard that criticism. You must have heard it 1,000 times. And I think that's not worth. We don't need to shy away from that. We need to understand it. But if we talk about the placebo and homeopathy as a placebo, we've got to be a little bit more sophisticated about it. Did you know that the placebo response in medicine is higher in Italy than it is in Japan?
No, but I could have. But if you would have asked me, I probably could have made that up.
Yeah.
That is so funny.
Isn't it interesting?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, back in the day, I should have boned up a bit, but I've not really read a number of those, sort of placebo studies that I kind of got fascinated in. But there's all sorts of things known about placebo, and that's one of them.
Yeah.
And it's, generally it's kind of accepted that if you do an intervention, then you'll fix 30% of the people.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the starting point. But it's a bit higher in Italy, and it's a bit lower in Japan. You're laughing.
I'm laughing because I totally get that.
Yeah, great. And so if we're running at 30%, then I'm sorry, homeopathy to me is a general effect because we're nice people. But who's running at 30%? I don't know anyone at homeopathy that's getting 30% success measured with however way you want to measure it.
Right, like in the studies that we've done, outcomes-based studies in our clinic, our results are over 80%, aren't they?
They're fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so therefore to me, just on kind of that alone, I mean, if someone's listening to this and they're not a homeopath and they don't know about homeopathy, they're going to have to say, well, I'll take your word for it that you're successful. But in all of the audits that we have, with the anecdotal evidence we have, with the science that we have,
right,
homeopaths are getting general effects, clearly, but specific effects from the remedy. And we get both, and that's where it's not a legitimate argument that homeopathy's effectiveness is because of placebo. And of course, there's the other arguments about chickens and cows and getting a placebo response out of a brown-eyed cow
right,
is a long shot. And I think that that those plant studies and then the animal studies.
Yeah.
So the vet studies, not the animal laboratory studies, but the vet studies completely dismiss that argument.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's funny. I don't even really think about that argument anymore.
Oh, right.
About placebo.
Yeah.
I mean, because so. I want to bring this back though, because you and I have had this conversation so many times and in so many different permutations around what do we do and what.
I just remembered a conversation I had once. I'm sorry, I'm going to interrupt because I was given the job of looking after Peter Fisher when he came to Australia back in the day.
Explain who Peter Fisher is for people who might not know.
The late, great Peter Fisher.
The late, great Peter Fisher, the homeopath to the Queen.
Yeah, so he was just this extraordinary, I'm going to say savant. I don't know. I'd like to know more about him, but I met him a number of times.
Yeah.
The last time I met him was in Baltimore at that conference I went to.
Yeah.
And he was really standoffish with me, but I think that was his kind of nature.
Yeah.
Until the last couple of times I met him, he was really friendly. Anyway, so I had to escort him around in Sydney. The folks that flew him out asked me to do that. And so we had a few dinners together. But in one of them, I think I might have been saying something similar to what we were just talking about. And he said, yep, I think it's the job of the homeopath to maximize everything they've got. And he used those words. He said, you need to maximize everything, including the therapeutic relationship.
Right.
And so, and even then, and then we went on and talked about other things. But what I took from that was that, you see, it's not about being nice. That's not what the therapeutic relationship is. And that's what, in the scholarship around it, that's not what they're talking about.
Right.
The core skills of the practitioner in the therapeutic relationship are to be congruent, authentic, and this expression, unconditional positive regard.
What does that mean?
Unconditional positive regard.
Yeah.
It's the unprejudiced observer.
Oh, wow.
No, it's total parallel to Hahnemann. Yeah. So and then one more, empathy.
Yeah.
So there's 4 core competencies, and if you want to be an effective helper, which we are, then you want to have all of those. So I think we're empathetic, and I like empathy as a skill to cultivate because it's not leaking. You can be empathetic to suffering, and present and not leak and try and rescue and all that stuff. But and then to be congruent, I think, is a really interesting one because that means you've got to show up, and you've got to be there fully. Like I think that's to be congruent means you've got to be present. You've got to, and how do you teach that? I don't know how you teach that.
Well, I think that's practice.
Right.
And modeling good behavior. I think that's why, kind of comes back to some of the things that we talk about with clinical training in homeopathy. It takes practice. We were in clinic, I think it might have been the clinic that I ran last Saturday, where a student said they were quite choked up or, like a lot of emotion came up, and they said, thank God I was not like on, in front of people. And it takes a while to sort of develop. It's not like you develop a thick skin, but you sort of sit in the face of human suffering in so many ways that you understand that energy pattern, and so that you can match it and be present in it, be congruent with it without it taking you over. It takes practice. And I think this expectation that homeopaths who are not trained clinically, who do not sit in the classroom to discuss all of those things, if you're just watching videos of cases, like I cannot imagine how much pressure it would, like how could you, I don't know. Anyway, it's a lot to ask of a student. I mean,
it really is.
We spend hours and hours and hours reviewing these things in preparation for being able to hold space and do that job.
Yeah. We do.
Yeah.
The third one is authenticity, and I think that's a really interesting thing to explore. That just means you've got to be present authentically.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm not so sure about the title of all of this because it's usually described as person-centered approaches.
Right.
But that means that in the literature, that means that your job is to be present, a human first.
Yeah.
Like you're suffering, I'm just a human here. Yeah. We're having a conversation. I happen to have some skills, and those skills are homeopathic, but that's third. And so first, I'm a person in front of you authentically listening to your story, and Roger says that's the most valuable thing.
Yeah.
And then, I'm also listening, writing, gathering information.
Yeah.
That's quietly going on in the background. So I'm not leading with the homeopathy.
Yeah.
Now I don't think you could say that that's what Hahnemann ever did, but they're definitely complementary. And then that last one, that unconditional positive regard, unconditional. So that means neutrality.
Yeah.
With a focus of I don't even know what to say, but with a focus of positivity towards the person.
Right.
I'm here, and we'll get somewhere. We'll go on a journey together.
Yeah.
It's almost that kind of underpinning statement. All of that. So actually, in clinic yesterday, we had a follow-up, and it was of this woman that was struggling with a whole lot of things, mainly physical, but there's a big background to it. And we're on our 5th consultation.
Yeah.
And I often end up saying to the students, look, we'll just start here because she's going to stick with us. We've got a nice relationship. And so she'll come back. We'll get there.
Yeah.
And with this one yesterday, it was so interesting because what I ended up hearing was that when she was talking about something, her voice just changed. And then she did it again. And then I waited until she'd finished a sentence. And I said, what's with this voice of yours that changes?
Oh, interesting.
So that is bringing, you bring the observation into the room. And,
right.
Clients they can't move, they can't escape from that. It's really difficult. So then we explored that.
Right.
And then she started giving us magic information.
Right.
It just started to emerge.
Is this the case that we went over last night?
No.
Oh,
no, that was a different one.
Okay.
No, that was a much tougher one. But, you know, that's what I mean, because I believe that when we've established a really heartfelt and legitimate therapeutic relationship, we can get a close similar and a close similar and a close similar and a close similar, and then we'll get there. We will get there.
Well, it's interesting so this week was the completion of the autoimmune block that I do with a semester for students.
Yeah, right.
Big culmination I have 6 sessions in a row with them that are pulling so many of those threads together, and it's like it's my favorite week. Although it means they're getting to the end of their didactic learning, but
Don't
anyway,
say that.
I know. But one of the things, so I have a client, a case that I teach, and some people listening to this, they might have seen I taught it at a conference some years ago. It was a woman who had, past tense, MS, 9 years to resolution of her symptoms, just 4 different remedies given, lots of repetition of dose, obviously. But anyway, it's very interesting because, when I teach, I have videos of her because she was gracious enough to teach her case with me a few times live. And one of the things that she talks about so much was the therapeutic relationship. And she said, and this blows me away because it's in one of the video clips that I teach. She says, Denise stuck by me through it all. And I thought to myself, we as practitioners think of it the other way around, that the clients stick by us. But in reality, if we really dissect that statement, it really is an aberration of expectation to think that if we're saying, the clients stick by us, it's, first of all, it speaks to the lack of confidence that we might have in the job that we're doing, on one hand. On the other hand, it could also speak to the fixer idea. And one of the conversations that's a very important part of the autoimmune, the complex, the series of lectures that we give on complex case management is the time that it takes for the physical body to catch up. Like you give a homeopathic remedy, you shift the dynamic disease. That's the energy. But you still have matter in the body. The physical body has to heal. And in the case of a degenerative neurological condition, you've got to rebuild a nervous system. That you don't give one remedy and the person gets out of their wheelchair and walks away. And there's this weird sort of expectation that you give a homeopathic remedy and, people start levitating and, and also that...
And then what?
Right. And that the pill is taking the place of personal responsibility in healing, all the things in the homeopathic diet that Hahnemann talks about, all the lifestyle and regimen. In the lecture, I go through, how many times in the Organon Hahnemann mentions, regimen, how many times he mentions obstacles, in other words, the things that get in the way of our healing. And so this, the therapeutic relationship is also it's the glue. Right? It's the way that we say to our clients. I mean, I say this in the beginning of when I'm taking on a really complex case, like, I'll stick with you. Like, I'm here. This is my job. It's going to take time, and we're going to do it together. And we're going to talk about it over the course of the healing, all the ways in which, we can understand the healing process, because people go through all these different stages during healing. Like, okay, so if I go back to the case that I taught last week, I've got a slide that has a can of Diet Coke on it because this client, she drank Diet Soda, Coke.
Didn't she turn up to a consultation?
With Diet Coke.
Yeah.
And we laughed later on where she said, I can't believe you let me into your office with the can of Diet Coke. I was like, it's not my body. It's like, I'm not going to judge what someone else is doing. I can very gently say, this is not helping, But people, until you hear it in your own mind, you don't always make the change, right? And then at a certain point she did. But that therapeutic relationship was, that was the glue.
So how do you teach that,
Yeah, I mean...
Because you're totally right. And that's, because here's a number. So I worked out, I did I think it was the might have been 2012 when I did another audit of my practice it might have been 5 years. And what I noticed from the audit I did in 2006 was that then I saw people 8 times, but by 2012, on average, I saw people 12 times.
Uh-huh.
And so,
Wait, that's it?
Yeah. What do you mean?
That's the number of consultations?
No, average. That's the number of average consultations per person. So some people I see once, but that means I see some folks 24 times.
Right.
Have you done that?
No, I'm fascinated because it's never occurred to me because,
I actually did it because I got asked a question, a financial question by a student. Like, can you project into the future? How do you project income?
Right.
And it's like, I don't know.
Right.
Because if you have a busy week, you have a busy week. And if you don't, and then there's the discounts and the pro bono, and then there's the folks that give you, a tip. And then
a tip?
You don't get tips?
Wait, you're kidding.
No, I've only ever had a couple of tips.
That is hilarious.
Yeah, actually it comes up in class all the time.
That is so... No, I've never gotten a tip.
Here.
And I tip
Here's
everybody.
A tenner.
But I do have 2 clients that pay me more than my rate.
Right. Well, that's a tip.
But they are homeopaths.
Oh, really?
They are junior in practice to me, and they charge a lot more than I do. And I think it's like yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. But anywho, I totally forgot what I was saying.
I'm still with the tip.
No, go back because it was before the tip.
How many?
How many clients do I see?
Clients,
12.
Yeah.
12's the number.
Wow. I would be so curious because I couldn't even fathom it. But, okay, now that I'm thinking it through, there are definitely people that I've only seen a couple of times.
Are you saying that seems low?
Yeah, totally.
Really?
Oh, my gosh.
But that's so amazing because I don't hear you rebooking your clients. I hear you saying to your clients, call me when you need me.
Yeah.
That's what you do, right?
I do, but I have people...
We got to get a student onto this. I think it's really important.
I have people, though... I think about this. I work with families, and I'm generations into these families, right? Where and sometimes, and part of it maybe is the construction of a practice. Like on one hand, okay... now that I'm thinking this through, because people say to me sometimes, well, how do you keep taking on new clients? Like, how is your practice not totally full? And I'm like, well, because people get well. So sometimes people get well and they just don't need to come back. But
the back door is open and the front door is open.
Exactly. And so sometimes people don't come back. They come back years later.
Yeah, totally.
Right? I just submitted a case for Jeremy Scher's upcoming Krypton book. And it was interesting writing up the case that I saw this guy for a couple of years, and then I didn't see him for a year, or maybe 18 months or something, and then he came back when he had a relapse. So he was doing really well, and then he had a relapse. Anyway, but I think the structure of a practice is also different, because I think about some of these families that I work with where, they're big families, and I'll be working with a couple of generations within the family. And so even though I might not see each individual person every 6 to 8 weeks or something like this, I'm seeing somebody in that family. You know what I mean? And so, gosh. Anyway, sorry, I just totally went tangential because you got me in my own head thinking about that question. It's a good one. But I want to go back to something, though, which is one of the things that concerns me about the therapeutic relationship is when it is overemphasized to the point where people don't understand what they do as homeopaths.
Got it.
Because it's still a good service.
Right.
Like, there's nothing wrong with that. But here's the thing.
No, totally. But can I just stop? Because I think it's really important, because I don't want to be misinterpreted. I found myself this week being misinterpreted a lot. Yeah. And so I'm not talking about analysis, using psychotherapeutic analysis. That's what they do.
Yeah.
But a person-centered approach to case-taking, that's what I'm talking about.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's it. So anyway, keep going.
Well, and I'm talking about the other thing, which is, I think, to learn to do homeopathy well and to hold a case over years to unravel the deepest levels of chronic disease is not easy. And it goes far beyond the 4 principled, match it Monday kind of idea that you would do for a cough or for a true acute issue.
Magic Monday?
Oh, match it. It's like people talking about matching it on the remedies in their different Facebook groups.
Match it Monday.
Match it. I made that one up.
All right.
But so what happens is that people then use this therapeutic idea, and then it becomes all these other things that people add to their practice, right? That take it away from the homeopathy, which is fine. I have no problem with that, because I think however people can step in to hold healing space and to use whatever special sauce they have to be a healer, great. But when you use a homeopathic medicine as a part of that dynamic, when it doesn't take into account everything that medicine does, that's when I get my panties in a bunch.
Right. Boy, do you ever.
I really do.
So because that's that's the specific effect. That's where the homeopath is overemphasizing the general effect.
Yes.
And perhaps doing bland homeopathy and minimizing the specific effect, because there's not enough energy going into the technical part of what we do.
And the technical part is you're dealing with a body,
a sick
person, right? So like when we talked about this before, about like sometimes we'll see these cases, or sometimes we hear it from students who have received homeopathy care in ways that are somewhat divergent from kind of a core understanding of homeopathy, and they've received remedies based on psychological profiling that could run counter to the chronic presentation.
Yeah.
And that is not good, I think.
Yeah.
Is that...
Is that what?
Well, I was accused of being judgmental. And I hope, and like you, explaining yourself, because people hear what they want to hear and then come back with an accusation.
Oh, the exact opposite of what you said. It's
right?
just ridiculous.
I don't feel that I'm being judgmental. And I also feel like, we've got to take responsibility for just the evolution of homeopathy as it has expanded. It's like, I don't know. I don't think we need to point fingers or make blame, but we need to take responsibility and have accountability. That's not judgy.
No, that's not judgy. But you do hear some things, and boy, do you holler.
Who, me?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know about hollering, but I definitely get a flush.
The neighbours have approached me on a regular basis.
Right, and we don't have near neighbours. Let's just be clear.
No, I'm kidding.
But so this is a thing, though. So the therapeutic relationship is something to be cultivated.
Oh my God, absolutely.
And every person has a different way that they deliver care. Like, we get, because of the construction and the infrastructure of, AHE and the Homeopathy Help Network, lots and lots and lots of people come to us for care, and we are then referring, to folks in our community, these chronic cases that come in, right? So cases come in, they either go to the AHE teaching clinic, or they go to students in supervision, or there's tons of overflow, then it goes to, who do you recommend? And the way that we recommend is based on, a combination of bedside manner and, just the types of people that a particular practitioner is really good at handling, and knowledge of homeopathy to be able to deal with the complexity of their physiological suffering. Yeah. It's like, it's kind of complex, right? Like, who would you say is like the ideal, like, what do you feel like you're good at?
Therapeutic relationship. Is that what you mean?
Oh.
I'm a good listener. I would say if I've got a superpower, your superpower's reverse parking.
Yeah, parallel parking.
Parallel parking into spaces that are smaller than the car.
And the frittata.
That's a good thing.
Those are my two superpowers, parking
both
and
often
frittata.
happen on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Yeah.
Can I just confirm that, folks? That you have two magic superpowers. That's outside of homeopathy. Inside homeopathy, mine is... It's interesting because... I'm a good listener, and then I'm often saying to students, "I didn't hear that," But I believe that I listen to the critical parts of a case that are important. My case notes are kind of usually a couple of pages, out of
Unlike mine.
Well, you're a stenographer. You can type.
No, I'm not. I don't type my notes. I handwrite. What are you talking about?
I don't know. Why did I say that?
Yeah.
Yeah, you totally do.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Anyway,
no, you asked me a question, and now I want to answer it because I'm desperately trying to think of things that I'm good at.
Okay. But the reason that I asked you is because I also want people who are listening who are practitioners to ask that of themselves.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Right.
So because I think that sometimes when you're a newer practitioner, and we can talk more about this, Al. It's fine.
I want to be good at something.
Yeah, you're good at so many things.
Digging holes in the garden.
Yeah, tending to the roses. Maybe not managing the aphids.
They're awesome at the moment.
Are
no
they?
aphids.
Oh, good.
Aphid-free zone.
Even on the kale in the hoop house?
Oh, those aphids.
Yeah.
I'm only interested. I don't care about the kale.
Yeah, I do. Anyway, so one of the things is that newer practitioners, they hit those speed bumps when they get into independent practice. And I think this is especially important if you're practicing and you don't have community around you. I mean, come find us. We get space for everybody at our table, but if you need support. But I think you hit this frustration where it's like, oh my gosh, I can't do this, or how do I get more clients, or blah blah blah, right? And one of the ways that you can reflect is to think, well, what do I do best in order to be able to really concentrate on and develop those skills, and then think about the ones that you struggle with.
Yeah.
Right? To really cultivate that, because what makes me sad is when I hear about people who have good homeopathy training and they don't get over that first hump, and then they go to do splintered off things, or I'm gonna buy this course and I'm gonna take this shortcut and I'm gonna do all these adjunct things that move them further and further away from just studying the core of homeopathy that is actually what makes them more successful, or at least can help them to be more successful. Yeah, I know.
And what I was thinking about is that because I realized I was going to say something, because you asked the question, what are you good at?
Yeah.
Right? That's where I'm at. What am I good at?
You're still thinking?
Yeah. And so I am a good listener, but I am also, I hold space.
Yeah.
And so, and I think, I'm going to say something, don't know if I should say this out loud.
Uh-oh.
But I think I got away with maybe 5 years of my practice by being good at those things as I was learning homeopathy on the run.
See, this is what I was getting to in the beginning, because you and I talked about this very early on, and honestly, I have to say that I was...
You know my most prescribed remedy for about...
Carcinosin.
5 years was carcinosin.
I know.
And then it was... folks, she's shaking her head at me.
I know, well...
And then after that was Metaurinum, and then after that was Nux vomica.
Yeah.
Now, and but
I
was
myself.
Well, no. Jeez.
Sorry. It was funny though.
It was too, but
wait, I think it takes a lot of cojones to say that, and I appreciate that you will. Oh, can I say that on a podcast? I think it's fine. I think that's okay.
Yeah.
But because it's just moving past the ego to say, like, none of us is perfect, and you have to work really hard.
Yeah, totally. I mean, statistically, there's all the remedies. I mean, there's just so much to learn. And actually, in those early days of practice, when I'd moved to a new country, and it was down. You know what? It was down to me. There was no sugar daddy, sugar mama, no nothing. No. You're earning your living as a practitioner. You've just got to get the numbers through the door.
Heck yeah.
And I think, there's a degree to which I learned on the run. I think that's what I'm saying. And whatever is, see, I do often think about that equation, the degree to which this person has got better. You take a case and you're going, nice, good cured case, or, resolved, and out the door. Which part of that was the remedy, and which part of that was case management, and which part of that was me holding space? Wouldn't it be interesting to look at that graph? Yeah,
well, here's the thing, though, and this is what I wanted to get to. It depends on the type of people that are coming to you.
Oh, totally.
Because if, you go back, if I go back to early days of my practice, there were plenty of middle-aged women with existential angst.
Oh, dear.
Right? And, and maybe some... and kids with ear infections. So, you get the kids with ear infections or teething babies or, little digestive thing. And those are like one and dones, or they used to be. right? And then you'd have the mom, or you'd have the woman with whom you have this therapeutic relationship, where the expectation of what the remedy would do there wasn't as much riding on it. I mean, I honestly feel like that things have changed so much now.
So you were fortunate to have like a run of those kind of clients to get your confidence up?
No. I mean, I wouldn't oversimplify it in that way, but I think that the demands now are so much different. Like, for every kid with just basic ear infections, there are 15 kids with Crohn's disease.
Right.
With pandas, with, every kid that comes through the door now has tics and twitches and, and has food allergies in ways that was not the norm. But that was, let's say, the 80-20 rule. I would say that 20 years ago, the 80-20 rule was you had 80% of people who were relatively healthy, 20% of these complex cases. And over the course of the last 2 decades, it's really shifted. And then there are all these other factors in which 20 years ago, I never, ever, ever once, 10 years ago, never saw a person who had taken more than 10 different remedies in their history. Now we see people who have taken 10. I mean, that's like they've taken that yesterday.
10 spreadsheets.
They've got 10 spreadsheets. People have taken 50 remedies. I don't think I've taken 50 remedies over the course of my years of using homeopathy.
I think you're right.
In 30 some years.
There were those moments where you take... Do you remember we went through... Do you remember when you got stung the first time?
Oh, yeah. Well, that's...
We went through the whole Materia Medica.
No, I got...
pretty quick.
I was stung. I was talking about... I had the summers of being stung. I got stung by a hornet.
You're not going to get stung this year. No.
No. I got stung by a hornet and my hand was like a paw for days and I was systemically sick. Then I stepped on the ground bee nest a couple of years ago and got stung hundreds of times.
Yeah.
But even with all that...
The first time it happened? The one when Fiona was here?
Your sister was here, yeah. I didn't even take a remedy.
Urticaria, it was.
No, that was the hornet.
Oh, okay.
Urtica urens.
Urtica urens. Urticaria.
But I mean, think about it. What the complexities in practice now, which means that the expectation for being able to solve cases is much higher. We see people in our clinic, in the teaching clinic that have, they've got real issues, and some of them have been to see different homeopaths, and some of them have done, 20, 30, 40, 50 protocols over the course of years. The hardest cases in my practice are these people. You hear me, I grouse about it all the time. I don't know what to do with some of these cases where they've taken, nosodes repetitively for months.
Yeah.
Daily, we don't have any literature on the net effect of, syphilinum 10M for 3 months and carcinosin 50M weekly during that same time.
Yeah.
That's a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Well, it just means that we've got to do a really good job in helping people. Yeah?
Yeah.
And we could do it with, just straight up basic homeopathy. That was kind of a turd in the punch bowl.
Well, that's the moral of the story.
Turd in the punch bowl?
No. I think, I like where we've gone. There's an arc in that conversation today. We started off with the therapeutic relationship. Anything else you want to say?
I love that part.
Yeah, me too. I really like it.
I love when, working with people like, some of my earlier clients, now their kids are all grown up. I've been with these children since they were born, and now they're in college, right? And that it's so satisfying to be a part of. One of my clients passed away a couple of months ago. It was this older woman. She was 90 something, and we had worked together for a long time, and it was such a beautiful. She made me laugh. I told her daughter, I work with 3 generations in that family, and her daughter wrote to me, the first day that she shared with me that her mom had died, and she said she always, had such a special relationship with you. And I told her, I said she was one of my favorite clients. Like, I could cry just thinking about it. She made me laugh. She was so funny.
She was the one that wanted you to get her a boyfriend?
She told me, she says, I don't need whatever. I can't remember exactly what she said. She said, if you can find me a young boyfriend, I'd be just fine. I said, I'm going to do my best. She was absolutely adorable, and homeopathy helped her. She had some real challenges, and, we kept her comfortable, and really, it just really helped so much. And anyway, but that therapeutic relationship is not just how we hold space, but it's also it's like, I always use this example of a double helix in the therapeutic relationship, because, it comes back in both ways. And like, if we take it back to learning as a homeopathy student, yet another reason why we need to see lots of cases is because I think part of why during the learning process of becoming a homeopath, you say, I need that remedy. Oh my gosh, that's me. We see ourselves in every remedy. To me, that's the learning of the energetic pattern. When we see it, right, in another person, sort of live, we then take that on, we learn it, and we can integrate that energetic pattern into our own, so that we have the capacity for pattern recognition. You don't need to take the remedy, you got it. You got it by seeing it in a client, right? And so there's this reciprocity that happens in seeing the client, where we are learning patterns and we're healing. And if we're able to be present and sort of with our own, like, the capacity to keep our own pain aside, right? We're just this vessel when we're receiving the case. But then if we are engaging in self-reflective practice, we also can draw from that well to see what we've heard in another person's case, that which in ourselves isn't yet healed. It also makes us a safer provider, because we're not projecting, or allowing the client to just project onto us the things that aren't yet healed. Can I say one more thing about this? And I know we're probably getting to time, but in the teaching of homeopathy, sort of, the development of the practitioner, and we've got like all this coursework that we do with our students. And one of the things that I love is getting students to realize that the part of us that gets, now the word that everybody would use is triggered. I don't, that word now means a lot of different things. So I don't really use it anymore. I'm searching for better language.
Velcro.
Velcro. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty good.
Thanks.
It's also like just when we feel something, we notice a change within us when we hear something, right? I keep a notebook. I have all those notebooks on my desk. And I have one that is just, I write down whatever the person said that I know elicited a feeling within me so that I can explore it later. So I just take a quick note, and it's going to be something to remind me to go back to my journaling process around that, because then I can ask myself a set of questions that's going to lead to more discovery, that's going to make me...
I love what you just said, because that actually is what I genuinely, authentically, totally believe in. And that is that if you're engaged in a therapeutic relationship, you are therefore automatically engaged in reflective practice.
Yeah, totally.
And that posture of a reflective practitioner, and that would therefore mean a bit of contemplative time, some journaling, getting supervision when necessary. That keeps you centered. That's unconditional positive regard. That keeps you centered, not losing your center too often whenever you hear anything that knocks you. And then you've got a process, or at least a strategy when you are knocked off center. And you're pointing at me.
Well, I am, aren't I? Well, because I got excited, because when you were talking about, you used the word congruence, so as part of that, and I think congruence is also part of what you're talking about, because there's this congruent, I'm kind of translating it into homeopathy language now, which is, it's a congruent sort of energetic stance that we take. Right? Yeah. And we because when we're in that space, we're sort of malleable to be able to receive that energy. So the congruence is also how, that I love that term, the homeopath is the first remedy, right? Because the first remedy is a similar, it's a stronger similar, right? Because we are hearing that energy, and then when we give it back to the person, like at the end of a consult, I always like to say to the client, this is what I heard you say. And then you feed it back in sort of a potentized form, right? So that's the stronger similar. Jeremy calls it the poker principle. I see you and I raise you one, right? And it's like that way in which the practitioner holds space, and then, when we can say back to the client what we've heard in a synthesized and potentized form, they're getting the remedy. Even if we don't find the substance, that part of the therapeutic relationship is also super healing. Yeah?
And guess what? It's not psychotherapy.
At all.
So that is what I don't want to hear, I believe that everything we've spoken about is not,
Totally.
go do Jungian psychoanalysis or any of that stuff. All of that stuff's fine.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're talking about.
No, I mean, when clients ask for advice like that, and sometimes they will, and I'll say, I'm not a therapist. We could talk about it through the homeopathy lens. It's like you need a decoder ring to put it into that context. This was a
Babel fish in your ear.
A bagel fish?
No, a Babel fish.
Oh, Babel fish, yes. I'm hungry.
You are hungry. All right.
I'm like, bagel fish. Wait, lox? Are we having bagels and lox?
It's time to go, folks.
That is clearly the key that we have finished.
Nice. All right.
Different than I thought, as usual.
Yeah, good.
Shall we do it again?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. See you, folks.
See you, everyone.
Bye.
AHE is changing the face of homeopathy education by raising the bar through rigorous academics and unparalleled clinical training delivered live through the soulful use of cutting-edge technology. AHE prepares its students to become fully rounded homeopathic practitioners from anywhere in the world. Apply today and ask about the early enrollment discount at ahe.online.